Okay, so welcome to tonight's STEPS newcomer class. My name is Lady Margery Heron, and I'm going to be teaching for today. I'm the Sigillarius Herald for the Kingdom of Osteora, which is largely a PR, social media, graphic design role. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys, and we can get started. All right. Can everyone see this? For lack of answers, I'm going to assume everybody can see this.
Yeah, it's showing up center screen.
Okay. So welcome to our class on persona and heraldry. We will just jump right in then. So first of all, what is your persona? It is who you are in the SCA. So it's whatever time period you're from, the culture you're from. So for example, like 14th century Englishmen, or you're from France or whatever. And this is not something that's required to play in the SCA. It's just something to add flavor if you want. You can be as broad or as specific as you want. I personally don't adhere strictly to a persona. I wear whatever I want and whatever is appropriate for the weather. So when it's hot, I wear Roman clothing. When it's cold, I wear Norse clothing and everything in between. It can be any pre-17th century culture. So this is just kind of like you building your world. So you get, people from Italy, Renaissance Italy, Tudor England. You get a lot of Vikings. And stuff like that. So there's a few different ways that you can pick a persona. These are the three that I recommend because they're just the easiest to me. Is you can start with a culture. So if you know, like, I want to be English, then you can go through different kind of, I guess, time periods in England or in Russia or Japan or whatever, and pick from there. Or you can start with a time period. Be like, I really like the Tudor period. I want to pick something from there. Or finally, if you just have a picture of something you look like, that you want to look like, you can also start with that. The only thing to be aware of is if you're using a photo from like Skyrim or Dark Souls or something, so those are fantasy games, so they're not going to be perfectly historical. Some of them are not even going to be close to historical. So just be aware you may not be able to match exactly, what you see. These are a bunch of links. Most of them are to Facebook groups. Again, I'm going to be making this presentation available in a PDF later, so you'll be able to click them and explore. You can see a lot of the different personas that we have in the SCA. So moving on to heraldry, which is a bit of a thicker topic. There's three main areas of it. There's your name, your armory, and there's voice heraldry. So your name, of course, is what you're called. So for example, my name is Margery Heron. That's not my real name. It's just a name that I picked that could have existed in period. My real name is Katie Gilroy, but I don't go by that in the SCA. Your armory is what a lot of people call your coat of arms or your device or your badges, and they are the pictures that identify you. So you can actually see on Ivo's screen, I think he's got his up right now. And then voice heraldry is when you go to court and you see someone, pray heed the words of their majesties. That's voice heraldry. And we'll get more into detail of those as we go through. So I'm starting with names and armory. Name is what I'm called. Your device represents you, and your badge represents your stuff. So here on the right, you can see my personal device and my personal badge. So the one that's in a shield shape represents me. I wear that on my body or on my shield that says like, Margery is here in this place. This is her. And the original purpose of heraldry was so that when you would look across a battlefield, you knew who to attack and who not to attack. And so you'll kind of see this at places like Gulf Wars and stuff. A lot of the Onsteoran army will wear yellow because that's our main color. And so the badge says these things are mine. So like my dog wears my badge on a bandana. My boyfriend has my badge inside of his shield because he is my boyfriend. And then for like things like kingdoms and baronies, they also have devices and badges, which are here. This is on the left, you will see Onsteora is the one with the star. And then on the right, the green and yellow is the Barony of the Steppes. So with kind of territories and landed nobility, what you'll see is the laurel wreath there on both the ones that say devices. And that's only the presiding noble of those territories can wear those arms. So only the king of Onsteora can wear that device, or the sovereign, if there's a female sovereign, can wear those arms because he or she or they represent Onsteora. They are Onsteora. They're the sovereign. But anybody can wear the badge to say, I am a part of Onsteora. I belong to Onsteora. So you will see a lot of people in this kingdom, we call it the Black Star, will wear yellow tunics with the Black Star, or belt favors or hoods, or they'll put it on their shields. So any person in Onsteora can wear that to basically declare their affiliation to the kingdom. And it's the same with the baronial one. Only the landed nobles of the barony can wear the device with the laurel leaf on it. So that would be Baron Lane and Baroness Catherine can wear the device. Any of us can wear the badge. So my dog, actually, on the next slide, you'll see her wearing the Steppes badge. So here's some pictures of heraldry in action. On this first picture here, you'll see our Baron and Baroness being vested. This was shortly before the COVID break. You'll see the gentleman in the beanie here is Master Brian, and he is wearing a tabard with the arms of the kingdom. And the reason he's allowed to do that, even though he's not the king, is because he is speaking with the king's voice. And I will get into that kind of the gentleman into that when we get into voice heraldry, but the herald that is speaking for the nobles in court will wear the arms of that kingdom or that barony or that group to signify that their words are the words of the presiding nobles. In the center here, you'll see Duke Madi. That is his device, his personal device that he wears himself. Other people don't wear it for him. He's got it on his shield. So when he's holding a shield, you know, oh, that's his grace, that's Duke Madi. You'll also notice he's wearing the Populous badge. So 2 for 1. And then the final picture is my dog. She is wearing the Populous badge because she is a member of the Steppes Populous. So that's just a couple ways that you can see heraldry being used. The SCA doesn't make quite a distinction between the badges and the devices. So you'll see on His Majesty in the first picture, his cloak has the devices of all the previous people who have reigned as sovereign. So a lot of people in the SCA will use their device as their badge as well. So it's your personal opinion how deep into heraldry you want to go. If you just want to say, like, I'm going to have my device and put that on everything, or if you want to be like me and have your device that is you and your badge that goes on all your stuff. So one of the things you can do in the SCA is actually register your heraldry with the College of Heralds. And this means that it belongs to you. Other people can't have it for themselves. So like, I'll go back to mine. I have these registered. Other people can't take them and say like, well, I'm Joe Schmo of Schmokeep, and like, I'm gonna use this red badge with the sea dog on it because my badge, I registered it. If you look it up, it takes you back to me. So what this does is it makes sure that you don't conflict with anybody else. So there's a couple different requirements. I'm not going to get into them too much right now because it's a really deep rabbit hole, but if you guys have questions on it later, we can come back. So with your name and with your device, you have to have a certain amount of differences from everybody else. So for example, my name is Margery Heron. There is another name that was Margery Bruce of Heron's Keep. And so I had to have a certain amount of differences between my name and Margery Bruce of Heron's Keep in order to have my name. So when you submit these, there are special forms. If you click that link, it'll take you to them. And your local herald or whoever's consulting with you can help you fill those out. You don't have to be a super heraldry wizard in order to have heraldry. There are tons of officers and tons of people who will help you. It's not your job to know everything. It's not their job to know everything. There's lots of help, and I have resources for that later on. So the whole registration process will take about 9 months, assuming that nothing gets sent back. What that means is, say that they decided that my name was too close to the name Margery Heron's Reach, they would send it back to me and say, it's too close to this name, pick something else. I pick something else and send it back. And on Steora, each submission is $8, and your local group gets to keep $1 of each submission. So not exactly big bucks, but still nice. And then you can have up to 10 names and 10 pieces of armory. One of those will be like your main name, the rest of your alternate names. And so what a lot of people will do is they'll combine these with their personas. They'll have like Margery Heron is their main person who they are, but then sometimes they want to play as a Viking, and like that person will be Valka Flokadottir. So it's like the same person, but they have alternate personas that they play. Again, I just wear whatever I want. I don't do a lot of alternate persona stuff, but some people really enjoy it. So it is however you want to play your SCA. Voice heraldry. Master Brian is here, and he is a master voice herald, so I will try to do him justice as I describe this particular activity. It is the art of announcing things very loudly. So most of the places you'll see this are kind of in public settings where people have to share information. So the main one that comes to mind most of the time when people talk about voice heraldry is court. So, everyone goes into court. You'll see somebody in the arms of the kingdom say, "Pray to the words of their majesties," and that person is doing voice heraldry. They're making the announcements. They're announcing the awards. They're calling people in. And then tournaments, you'll see heralds kind of running each list field. If there's multiple, and even if there's just one, they'll probably announce like, now calling Lord Magnus Crepinson and Lady Margery Heron, and then they'll announce who's on deck. And then at big events like Gulf Wars and even some smaller ones, you'll have kind of news criers or camp criers. They'll go around and tell you, here's what's happening today. This is starting in an hour at this field. So again, loud announcements so everybody knows what's going on. And something to note in court is that when a herald is speaking in court, they are speaking with the voice of the presiding nobles. So that means if they say something, those count as the words of the Baron and Baroness. So something to note here is you don't want to be talking while the herald is talking, because now you're talking over your king and queen or your Baron and Baroness. That's not appropriate. Alternately, if you are the herald, you don't want to be saying stupid things while you're wearing the tabard and performing court, because that reflects on the nobles for whom you're working or you're volunteering for. And then the SCA recently has also made a big push to have silent heralds, which perform the same duties as a voice herald, but they do it in sign language, and that's to help our friends who are deaf and hard of hearing still participate and still understand what's going on. And there's some good articles on that in the Herald's website, which I will get to in a minute. It would work. So here are just a few resources. There are significantly less Facebook groups in this list. The SCA College of Arms is the main website for heraldry for the entire SCA. On Steora College of Heralds is our specific one. And it just got a facelift, so I highly recommend checking it out. And then there's some others. I highly recommend, if you're getting into heraldry, checking out some of these Facebook groups. They are very helpful and they love to help. They will overhelp you. So that's my very short presentation. I figured there'd be a lot of questions, so I wanted to leave space for them. So if you guys have questions, you can unmute and ask or put them in the chat, and I will do my best to answer. I think I know some people had some. Did we already cover persona? Yes, we did. I can go back over it though, if you would like. And I shall, because I have you all captive here. So persona, basically, the Phil and Read version, it's who you are, where you're from, what culture you are. And it also, I didn't mention this the first time, can be, how wealthy or powerful you are. So in the SCA, nobody has to be a peasant if they don't want to. If you want to, you're completely allowed to, but everyone in the SCA is assumed to be some sort of non-landholding gentry. And then as you advance in the SCA and you become king or queen or a count or countess, you get some bonus titles that you can add to your name, and you're more powerful, or you're in the royal family and stuff like that. It's not required. You don't have to have a persona. My persona kind of ends with like my name being Margery Heron, and that's English. That's like where my persona ends. And you can be as broad or as specific as you want. And it's just any culture pre-17th century. So Japanese, Korean, English, French, Mongol. Is there such a thing as multilingual heralds like German, French, Spanish, and English? Probably. I would assume there was, especially as we're making a push to be more inclusive. That being said, the SCA is highly English speaking, so I've never seen a need for a translator at court. That being said, if one was needed, I am sure we could find someone to provide that. And then a lot of heralds also really like bardic, and so they'll be able to like sing in a different language. I think so in Canada and Europe. English is the official language of the society. At a stunt, Herald read my laurel scroll in Old Norse for my elevation. So yes, you can herald in any language. Just be aware that the point of heralding is to give the information to the people listening. So if you're going to read the scroll in Old Norse, maybe also read it in English, or if yeah. Oh. Yes, other languages welcome. You can be from any older culture. Yes, you can. I know a couple of Greek guys. I have a good friend who pretty much only wears Romans because Texas is very hot. Greek, Roman, Celt, you can do it all. Pre-17th century. The SCA has, I believe, no official start date. It's like if there was a human, you can be that human. There are a lot of Greeks and a lot of Romans.
Well, relatively, the start date is the fall of the Roman Empire, about 5th century.
That was rescinded by the board of directors last year.
Oh, what? I didn't
is
see that.
It is no longer restricted to Europe, and it is no longer considered to start at 600 AD. Anything pre-1600.
The SCA removed the like Eurocentric wording from their governing documents because they wanted to encourage a more broad study of everything and be welcoming to other cultures and things like that. So we are moving towards a less Eurocentric medieval society and just medieval all over the globe.
I can't tell if I'm audible.
I just heard someone asking if they were audible. Yes, you are.
Yes. Okay, cool. Thank you. So when it comes to naming a persona, you have to have the evidence that they were at one point an actual name used during the time frame you'd like it to be from.
Yes. So there's, in the links that I gave, there's a lot of good resources. Basically, if you have two name pieces, so first name and last name, that are from the same culture, they have to be within 500 years of each other. And there are a couple different cultures that the SCA will allow you to mix. So for example, if you are going to be early period Norse, you can have elements of an English name. So I'm trying to think of a name that's pretty early, probably Elizabeth could be found really early in England. If you wanted to be Elizabeth Flokadaughter and you could provide those names within 300 years of each other, you could mix the English first name and the Norse surname. What you can't do is mix names like within, you can't have like, I don't even know how you would do this. It was baffling to me, but like You can't take a Norse name and do like an English O Floki or something, because that is Irish and Scottish. Floki is Norse. But different pieces of the name you can connect. And again, on the form, there's places for you to provide the documentation that you have found. And usually that'll just be, you paste a link, or if it's something you got out of like a book at the library, you submit a photocopy with it. Does that answer the question?
Plus, one of the things about names, if it's the name of a mythological god or a fairy, they do not register it. Like Rhiannon, they no longer register Rhiannon because they've never found an example of that name in medieval Europe or anywhere close to medieval Europe. It's been used a lot, but they stopped. They kind of, up until 2009, they made it compatible just because they're going to use it. But after 2009, because it is a mythological name, they no longer use it. So you can't use a romance novel name unless it's actually been used, like Mary, Elizabeth, Elise, or something like that. You can find dated examples. But if you do Zeus, you could probably find it in Greece, but you still have to find a dated example to prove it was used as a person's name and not a mythological god.
Yeah, just because something exists in a fantasy show doesn't mean that it's not able to be used. Like I took Margery off of Margery Tyrell from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So I can't be Margery Tyrell, but Margery Heron's fine. And you'll notice that I spell it differently because the way they spell it in the show is not actually historically accurate.
Yeah.
Baron Elaine is here. There are other things you can't have, like you can't be a historical figure. So like you can be Anne, or you could be somebody Boleyn, but you can't be Anne Boleyn. And there are also charges that are protected that you can't use in your heraldry. So for example, the Tudor rose, which is a red rose with a smaller white rose in it, that's reserved. You can't use that because you would be claiming to be part of the Tudor dynasty, which you're not. But you can have a red rose or a white rose separately. You just can't have them one on top of the other. Yeah. There are also some charges that the society has said are unacceptable. So the big one that everyone kind of comes to mind is swastikas. Yes, they were period. They have since been ruined for everybody by Nazis. We don't register swastikas. We don't wear swastikas. Just because they are period doesn't mean that you should use them. Nobody, like anybody who's going to try and wear a swastika, they're not doing it because it's period. And we've had to be a little careful with runes, but largely those are fine. I don't think we allow them in heraldry because they weren't in period heraldry, but as far as like wearing things with runes on them is fine.
Do you, if there's a symbol that, okay, I'm just going to give an example because it's hard to explain what I'm asking. If you are, say, an English woman, but you want a lotus flower on your thing, can you do that if there weren't lotus flowers in England?
Yes. So there are certain ways you would submit what's called an individually attested pattern. So if it's something that breaks the typical rules of heraldry, we've also started allowing more things from like Asian cultures. So lotus flower, I would have to double check. There's a lot of different flowers. And then there's also what people call artistic license. So like you register a dog, but then like I could draw that dog with like big droopy ears or whatever. So like if you register a certain flower and then draw it kind of stylistically, that's allowed. but you can't draw it in a way that completely changes what the flower is. And these are all things that, like, if you contact your local herald, they'll help you with. It's not your job to know everything perfectly. And the society's kind of gone back and forth on a lot of this. The rules change all the time. That's why these online groups are so helpful. So like for a while they were allowing Eastern style dragons, and then they disallowed them because they were not European, but now we're moving away from that Eurocentric SCA. So Eastern style dragons, I believe, are allowed again. Welcome to anyone just joining us. If anyone else has any more questions, I can talk about tinctures because those are always confusing and people have a lot of opinions about it. There are only a handful of heraldic tinctures. There's red, blue, green, black, white, purple, and yellow. And that's it. There's no orange or teal, whatever. You can have kind of shades within that. But those are the colors, and there's color rules. And when you consult with a herald, they'll be able to help you. I just got a question. Can I use a military rank with my persona, like general, major, captain, etc.? Depends what you're using. So we don't register assumed ranks within the SCA. And then there are some ranks that you have to earn in order to be able to be called by them. So for example, our Baron has earned the right to be called Don because he's a white scarf von Steora. So he'd be Don Elaine if he was not Baron. A regular person can't just call themselves Don or Donya. The same goes with Sir for knights. A regular person can't just call themselves Sir. And there are also names that imply knighthood that you can't use because they imply knighthood. It's like the name Miles. We have one person who managed to get it registered, and then after that, they were like, no more people called Miles. That means knight. Same thing with the name Ray. Ray implies king. So one person in the SCA was able to register the name Ray, and then they were like, no more Rays, because it implies that you're the king, and you can't imply that you have a rank you haven't earned. So some people will be like the captain of a fighting company. That's kind of on you and your company to decide. Symbolism and heraldry. Do the images generally mean something? If I pick an onion, is someone going to assume it means I'm a farmer? In period, no. Heraldry had no meaning aside from I'm going to attack these people because their heraldry is the people that I'm fighting against, and I'm not going to attack these people because they're wearing the symbol of my allies. There is a clan blue feather, which is typically people on the LGBTQ+. So if you put a blue feather on there, that might have some assumptions attached to it, but other than that, I can't think of anything that would specifically say like, I am this. Like my heraldry has a dog on it because I like dogs, and that's kind of it. Your heraldry is not your personal life story. It's like just because you fight in heavy armor and like own a bow and arrow and have a dog doesn't mean that you have to have a sword, a bow, and a dog on your arms. Generally, the simpler, the better.
Is there I know you said that there's no early limit on it, like you could be, from the year 200 or whatever AD. Is there an end to that? Like, does it stop at like 18th century or something?
We stopped at 1600, so basically the death of Elizabeth.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of gray area. So like if you find a name from 1650, they'll still let you register that because like there is a distinct possibility that someone could have had it 50 years before then.
Okay.
Can your surname be of location? Yes. And you have two options for this. You can be of a period, city, or country, or you can be of a group in the SCA. It's like you could be Jason von Steora, or Jason of Steps, or Jason of wherever you're from, or you could be Jason of York. So it's up to you where you want to be from. My dog is squeaking her toy in the background, if anyone can hear it. I know there's like a lot to digest with the names and the heraldry. Luckily, I enjoy that part of Heraldry, so I'm happy to answer any more questions. You can put them in the chat, or you can just unmute. And names in
And
Heraldry
there's
are
a
also,
lot of heralds who will be glad to help you figure out your heraldry. There's several of us right here on this webinar right now. So if you need questions answered, just ask a herald. They'll be glad to help.
does your persona have to match your gender? It does not. I know women who play with male personas. I know men who play with female personas. SCA really doesn't care. Why not gender neutral people who just pick? And you also don't have to dress according to your gender if you don't want to. Like, I'm a woman, full stop. I wear pants a lot of the time, especially because I'm a fighter. Like, I fight in pants. If I'm just going out to shop really quick, like, I wear pants. So there's nothing that says because you have a feminine name that you have to dress feminine, or that you have a male name and you have to dress like a male. So you can be whatever gender or whoever you want. That is the good thing about the SCA. And then another thing to note is you don't have to register a name if you don't want to. You don't have to register Armory if you don't want to. It's just something to add flavor to your game.
What?
Can you, the question is, can you register a device without having a name registered? Yes, you can, but not in the way that you just submit a device. You have to have something registered, so no. But you can create a holding name. So say that I didn't have, you know, a name or something, I could submit my device and submit a name that's Katie of Steps. Or Katie von Steora. Or if you have a first name that you kind of vaguely like, Elizabeth von Steora. So you have to have something in there to attach your device to, but it doesn't have to be this full, like, produced period name. It can just be very simple. And there is an allowance for you to use parts of your actual legal name. So for example, my legal name is Catherine. I could have submitted my driver's license, then like my first name's Catherine. I'm going to be Catherine Heron. I didn't do that, but you can if you want. I have a friend named Tally, and that is what she did for her name. The benefits of registering your name are that it becomes your name that is specifically for you. So nobody else can register that name. They'll be encouraged not to go by that name if it is the same as yours. And then when you get pretty scrolls and things, they'll put your pretty period name on it. Can your persona's costume or attire integrate other anachronistic costume pieces like classical Greek hairpin, but European heels? Technically, the only thing the SCA requires is an attempt at pre-17th century garb. However historically accurate you want to be is up to you. I personally am not a big stickler for historically accurate garb, like whatever you want to wear, just come out. I just want as many people to come to the events as possible. I don't care what you wear. I don't care if it's like a ratty tunic and like sweatpants, just come play. A lot of people will say it doesn't matter if what you're doing is perfectly historical, but try not to mix cultures. Again, I don't personally care. It is up to you. And if people get snippy at you for what you're wearing, you should report them because it's mean. And we don't tolerate meanness in Steps or in on Steora or the SCA.
I am the seneschal of the Steps, and if anyone here encounters somebody being mean to them over their clothes at a Steps event, please come and tell me. Let me help you. I enjoy that.
Esme is always ready to throw down on your behalf. I luckily have never had any issues, but should I ever need something, I will holler at our seneschal. She also would like everyone to know it's good to register your name so that we have a way to call you up in court, so that we can award you for all of these great things and this great garb that you're going to make and these fun activities that you're going to do. I was curious if I could base myself in Greek culture, but mix in from other cultures. Basically, yes, do what you want. I don't tell other people how to play their SCA as long as you're being safe. So rule number 1 in the SCA is don't be a dick. Beyond that, it's kind of whatever you want to do. And to be honest, a lot of people will be really knowledgeable about like one or two things. And then, so like, I know a lot about Norse naming practices. I couldn't tell you anything about Roman garb. So if you mix in something and it like looks vaguely medieval, a lot of people will not even know if you're mixing cultures. So for example, I had a client, I was consulting with someone who wanted a Norse name. And typically when you're Norse, you take your father's name and that becomes your last name. So I previously had a Norse name registered before I registered this one. That is my name that I use. And it was Flokadottir because the guy who got me into the SCA was named Floki. So I was Floki's daughter. You take your dad's name. He's not my biological father. We were just pretending. This person wanted to take her mother, air quotes, she wanted a female name to make her last name, which is totally fine and documentable and period. The only thing about that is if you were Norse living in Scandinavia and you had mom's name for your last name, that means mom was sleeping around, you didn't know who dad was. Like the average Scadian doesn't know that. So like if you want to take a female name as your last name is totally fine. It's just that people
It just means the Vikings came through that year. Happened to lots of people.
Yeah, and the SCA is also supposed to be in the Middle Ages as it should have been. And so maybe they should have given women more power, and now that's why we're taking mom's name instead of dad's. So like I said, not everyone's going to know everything about medieval culture. It's okay to not be perfectly historically accurate. Byzantine clothing is late Roman. Yes, it is. My fighting kit is vaguely Byzantine, and there are Roman elements. Anyone else have questions about this or about the SCA in general? I have an approximate knowledge of many things. I'm happy to answer your questions. All right.
Does everything have to be done by hand?
Like the art. So on your forms, Onsteora is accepting digital forms now, which is great because I cannot draw. And if you are someone who is artistically challenged like me, there are about 1,000,001 heralds who would love to draw your device for you. But yes, we accept digital submissions, which is especially great right now because nobody can see each other. So if I show up to an event where most people are in European garb, I'm in traditional Greek, and it's fine. Yes, totally fine. There is a Duke who lives near Steps. He's over in Elsie. His name is Duke Drake, and he is currently the president of the BOD, and he wears Greek clothing because he doesn't like to wear pants. So a lot of people do wear European clothing. That's just kind of how it goes. But like if you want to be Persian or Greek or Mongolian or whatever, wear what you like, as long as it is an attempt at pre-17th century clothing. There are some recommendations I will make. In the South, it is hot, so polyester will trap heat, so I would suggest you don't make clothing out of like polyester fabric. That being said, if it's what you can afford, it's what you can afford. But don't be afraid to ask members of Barony for help. A lot of us have extra linen or extra, whatever. In which region or domain would Valiant, Oklahoma be? I can look it up for you. I don't know off the top of my head because I don't have the cities of Oklahoma memorized. So basically, like in the heat, I recommend linen or 100% cotton, which is cheaper than linen. Valiant, Oklahoma. Looks like you are.
What is a hospitaller? Hospitaller?
Oh, the Hospitaller is the welcome wagon of the group. So they're kind of the newcomer liaison. They can get you, if you need garb, or if you're like, I'm vaguely interested in archery, they'll introduce you to the archery people.
Welcome wagon.
Yes.
Thank you.
If I knew Onsteora's geography, I could tell you what that's near. If you ask in the King of Onsteora Facebook group, they'll be able to tell you what local group you're with. You are welcome to come visit us in Dallas if you want. Yes, our Hospitaller is busy getting married right now, but as a social media officer, I also do a fair amount of welcoming. So you are welcome to find me on Facebook as Katie Gilroy. I have paw prints all over the kingdom page and the barony page, so I'm very easy to find, and you can message me. Which region is our heraldry? Oh, if you are wanting to look at the heraldry of all the local groups, we have that available now. I, in my role as Hilarious, made high quality graphics for all of the groups in the kingdom. So I'll put that in the chat and you can kind of explore everything.
Do children participating also have their own
Persona?
Heraldry? Yes, they can.
Each of them, persona and the other two things that I've already forgotten. Herald.
Yeah, what a lot of parents will do, first of all, they'll make their own badge so that they can put that on their child. The child gets returned to them.
Yeah,
And then another thing that they will do, because you might have to be 18 to register a badge. I'd have to check with Brian on that.
That's what I was wondering if there was like an age. Yeah.
There is
what the
no
parents
age requirement for
there's no
registering
age
arms and names.
A lot of parents will register their kids' stuff as alternate names and devices for like the parent. And then when the kid is like more ingrained in the SCA, they will write like basically a heraldic will that says, I bequeath this red square with a dog on it to Margery Jr. So yes, kids can have heraldry, and it is a great way to get them involved, and they should have it because it's fun. And also you should make yourself a badge and put it on your child so that we return them to you should they get lost. Or just put the baronial badge on them and they'll give them back to the barony, and the barony will take care of them because Steps is delightful. There was one thing I mentioned. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys because we have time. It's the On-Stay and History Wiki. Our kingdom historian has done a great job of getting this set up so that, you know, it's interesting to read and stuff. And what it has on here is a list of people in the kingdom who have made, you know, their names and whatever, and they've made wiki pages. And you can go in here and kind of look at what other people have done for their personas. So here's a list of just a few people, A through H, and you can click on these names and learn about them. So I know our current king has one. Let's go look at his. So Jason Drysdale is the current king of Monseora. This is his wiki page. There's him. You can put a picture of yourself in your heraldry, and you can kind of see, you know, first of all, what some people have registered their heraldry as. Offices, if they have a big, you know, persona, they'll put it there. I know Vladislav Pasha has a good one. There's a lot more pages of this than the last time I was here. So this is Count Vlad. As you'll see, he has a lot in his. He used to have a long persona thing. So here's his persona, and he has like a very strong persona that he plays as. So when he was king a little while ago, he went by Sultan Vlad because that's who his persona was. He was a sultan. He wasn't a king. And then instead of using the title Count, he goes by Vladislav Pasha because that is the like equal rank for the culture that he's from. So you can go as in-depth or not in-depth as you want. He's still entitled to call himself Count Vlad if he wants. He chooses to use this other thing. So I highly recommend clicking around these, and you can see kind of what other people have done.
Is that link in the PDF that you're going to send us?
Yes. Unchaperoned children will be given wine and a puppy. We will not give them wine because they are children. I will give them my puppy though. She eats 3 cups a day. Have fun. What do I do if I have a group of friends who are interested in joining the SCA and participating in events? Must you be a paid member to obtain heraldry and persona? Nope. Paid membership is not a requirement, but if you do get a paid membership, you get $5 off every event that you attend. And you also get the warm, fuzzy feeling of knowing that you have supported your local nonprofit. If you have a group of friends who are interested in joining, bring them to a practice because that's completely free. That's usually the first step I take with people. And then the first event I will typically take them to is Steps Warlord, because that is the one that is local to me and it's one day and they don't have to camp. Another one that is a really good first event is War of the Rams. That is in Houston, so it might be kind of a drive for you, but it's a really good newcomers event. And if you have friends who are interested in joining, you should totally harass them until they join.
If you have different personas, does each persona have a different badge and herald, or is it that badge and herald is yours and then you can apply it to different personas? Or
yeah, however you want to do it. You can have
both
10
of
different names and 10 different pieces of heraldry for each of them, or you can just be like, this is my picture of a dog and every single one of my names is going to use this picture of a dog.
A caveat to that is you have one main primary name. You can have 6 alternates, but you have a primary name and 6 others. You can have a primary device and you can have, I think, 6 alternates, but you can only have one primary, and then you can have however many badges you want to stick things on. Such as every artist has millions.
You can have up to 10 names and 10 pieces of
Yeah.
armory or 10 pictures now, so it'd be 1 main, 9 alternates. That being said, just because you make something your main name doesn't mean you're stuck with it as your main name forever. My name was previously Valka. I changed it. Now Valka is going to be my alternate name. My main name is Margery. So you can change it at any time. Just be aware you have to get people to stop calling you by the previous name. Start using your new name.
Also, if you pick a name, pick one that can be pronounced in court, or you will never hear the last of it.
Or don't. Duke Mahdi deliberately picked his name because it is hard to pronounce and he likes to watch the heralds struggle. You can also make your Onsto or in wiki page and put the pronunciation on there, and then people will be able to see how to pronounce your name, especially if you're Welsh, because Welsh names are really hard to pronounce.
I have an Irish Gaelic name and I've had 6 heralds funky the name, but I chose to have an Irish Gaelic name.
Just be aware,
if
something that's not well known, it may be hard to pronounce. So that being said, if you hang out in the SCA and go to practice and go to events, like people will know who you are, they'll learn to pronounce your name. So get involved and then people will say your name right. Duke Mahdi tells this story about he has this long, I believe it's Middle Eastern name, and he writes the whole thing down so that the list herald on the field has to read the whole thing. So he gets the note card with Duke Mahdi's name on it, he looks down, he's like, oh my God. And it took Mahdi like 5 minutes to stop laughing so that he could take the field. Baron Lynn says, what is Mahdi's full name? I like watching the struggle. You're gonna have to let me pull it up.
Mushir Abdel Mahdi Jamal Ibn Akim.
There you go.
Which leads
Everyone
me
knows it.
a question: how many names can comprise one name?
Depends on the culture.
How good's your documentation?
Really
okay, so I mean, you would have to show that in the such and such period, people actually had up to that many. Like in the English period, for example, I know people had up to 5 names. So as long as the period that you're doing it, people in that period might have up to 5 names, then you can have up to 5 names as your name. Is that correct?
Yeah, in that period and in that culture.
Welsh,
so like
Welsh
the Norse were kind of just like first name, last name, versus like Englishmen would have long ones, and people in Persia would have even longer ones. But if you can document it, typically you can have it.
The Welsh usually do a patronymic. In fact, one of our dukes is, and I can't remember all the names, Owen ap Traherne
Owen ap Aden ap Traherne ap Llewellyn ap Glyn ap Camden ap Queth ap Kern.
So there. But that's not a usual thing. Most people keep it short and sweet. It just depends on the culture and the naming pattern. The
I mean-
Spanish do it too.
If watching people struggle is your thing, then you should absolutely pick a really long and difficult name, because I think it's funny.
They're talking.
And the heralds are heralds, and we deserve to struggle.
You create who you are in the past, and you can create your own badge and your own like device, which is kind of like a coat of arms, and kids can do it too.
Anybody? Does he want to see some? I can pull him back up.
You want to see an example?
All right, let me share my screen.
Wait, are you unmuted?
I'm unmuted. Yeah, they can hear you.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you guys see?
Yep.
So here is all of the armory for all of the groups in the kingdom. Right here is for the king in the kingdom, the queen. She's also got a badge. This goes on her champion because he is her, or he is, or she is her champion. The prince and the princess are very similar to the king and queen. This label typically denotes heirs in some medieval heraldry, depending on what culture and what time period you're in. So that's why they have this red bar on the top. Here are the groups in the central region. So that's the middle of the kingdom. It's the DFW area and kind of up into the Texas Panhandle.
It goes up for themselves, and that belongs to them. No
So this is how you know what group you're looking at. Here's the northern regions. This is Oklahoma and the northest part of Texas. There's
So is
Namron.
that-
That's where
is
our
that-
current royalty is from.
The olive-looking thing or wheat or whatever, is that indicative of what group they're in?
Yeah, so the laurel branch is reserved, can only be used by like groups. So kingdoms, baronies, shires, groups of people. So an individual person can't have a laurel leaf like this on theirs.
So what was that? What were we looking at there? That wasn't a person's.
So
If I-
these are not individual people. These are all of the baronies. So
Oh,
like the
okay, gotcha.
groups of people within cities.
Are there
So,
any
like-
other symbols that you can't use? Not like Nazi stuff, but I mean in the sense of like laurel branch.
Yeah, there's a couple, and they're pretty easy to remember once you've been around the game for a little bit. So let me stop sharing this so that I can see what's going on. There are certain things that like are rank. So certain coronets, which are like crowns, you can only use on your heraldry if you're like a baron or a baroness. So for example, Baron Lynn could use a coronet with little pearls on it because his rank allows him to have that. He can have so he's got a badge now in the process of being registered that's a raccoon. He can put a white scarf on the raccoon because he is a white scarf. White belts and chains are reserved for knights. There are others. I can add a link in the Facebook group. This is nothing like crazy. There's certain kinds of like pelicans that you can't use because pelican is a rank. And then like crowns. A lot of it is not stuff that you would typically use.
I know that if families join, obviously the family doesn't have to actually be a family in terms of their personas, but if they want their devices to sort of be linked in some way, are there families where they'll choose like one particular symbol type motif thing and then it's used on the devices of all the people in that family?
Yeah, you can. You can register, I would register it as a badge versus a device, which the only difference really is that the form that you send it in on uses a lot of the same artwork.
That's not what I mean. I mean, if you had like, let's say that there's 4 people in a family and they all want to design their own device, but they want to have some kind of common element among the 4.
Yes, you can do that. There's
they all
one
have
person.
rose in the lower right corner or something like that.
Yeah. So my household that is not biologically related to each other, but like we're family, a lot of us use red in our devices. So like if all of you decided you wanted to have like a bird in the top left corner, you can do that. What else you can do is have one person register a household badge or device. Trying to think of a household that's done it. Wolfstar has done it, and they have like a wolf and a star that they put on all their shields, and like that's all of them who play together. So you can have your heraldry be like as similar to your families as you want, or as different as you want. You could have the same thing with like a different color. Does that answer the question?
Yep, that answers it. And can you
Okay.
have mythological? Well, I guess you can because you have dragons, right? So you could have,
Yes, dragons, unicorns. Some people make their own monsters because they like to watch the world burn.
does the does the monster? I mean, does the mythological creature have to come from that region? Like, if you were, let's say that you were going to be someone from Japan, but you wanted to use a phoenix, but phoenix is a European thing.
You can use it.
Okay.
Like I have what's called a sea dog, and it's basically a mermaid dog. That's pretty late period, and my original persona was very early period Norse. So like, you can be as close and historically accurate as you want, or you can just be like, I want this picture in this name, and like, this is what I'm gonna have.
It's worth pointing out that research into names and arms is extremely complicated, and when we say talk to a herald, consider that engaging a specialist. It's like kind of like hiring an attorney. You hire an attorney because they know the law. You can make all the lawyer jokes you want. I'm named after the patron saint of lawyers. But for names and arms specifically, if you want to get into the research and do that, please by all means do. But if you look at it and your eyes cross, I'm not joking. There's an army of book nerds out there who are lining up, drooling, waiting for someone to say, can you please research this? I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah, I used to do research for people while I was walking my dog. So like Tally's here now. I built her name while I was at the park with my dog. So I'm happy to help. How do you contact a herald to apply for a name in heraldry? Your herald's email is going to be probably herald at the name of your local group.onstaora.org. My email for my office as herald is in the PDF that I will post. Sorry, Jason, I couldn't figure out your local group, but you can email probably any herald of any local group and they'll all help you.
And there's lots of us out there too.
At onstaora.org/heraldry, there is a contacts page. So if you go in there, you can kind of see the list of people you can contact for different things and they'll help you. Also, the Facebook group SCA Heraldry Unofficial Chat is probably the best resource on heraldry I've ever seen if you don't want to do all the research yourself. So feel free to contact me if we never figure out which your local group is, I'll help you. If you want a creature for a badge, could it be a Medusa head or face? Yes, Gorgon faces are registerable. There are some, so like knot work, we really don't register because the point of heraldry is that you're supposed to be able to, like, if someone reads the description of your heraldry, they should be able to recreate a reasonable drawing of it. So like a lot, like the Helm of Awe is a Norse symbol that we see a lot in the SCA, but that's not registerable because it's not something we really see in heraldry. If you can prove it though, like you can have it, just no one has been able to prove it yet. There's also, in terms of creating monsters, what people will do is they'll take like the hind legs of like a lion and attach it to like the front legs of something else, and then like the head of something else. And I'm not a professional on doing that, but in the Facebook group, there are a million professionals on doing that. A really common one is just like sea whatever. It's like sea wolf is the top of a wolf and then the bottom is a fish, or a mermaid. Sea horse is a mammal horse top and a mermaid on the bottom, versus a natural seahorse, which is the animal that we consider a seahorse. So really the world's your oyster on heraldry. Usually there is a workaround that we can get very close to what you want.
You have any questions?
What is the actual art process of designing the heraldry? Usually the herald you're working with will help you design it. I do all mine digitally, other people draw them by hand. There are a lot of events that if you go to them, they will have heraldic consulting at the event. So I know Gulf Wars does, I know Steps Warlord does. I'm sure other ones do. If you go there, they might draw it for you on site. Alternately, if you message me and say, this is what I want, I will design it and give you the art. Or you can design it yourself, you just have to have the software for it. Is there a fee for consulting? There shouldn't be. If a herald's trying to charge you money for talking to you, you should report them to the kingdom because it's a volunteer organization.
Or report him to the other heralds. We'll kill him before the king gets to him.
A lot of heralds are heavy fighters. I will consult for free. I'm sure Ivo will. Like, we do this because we enjoy it. Like, it's not a chore. You don't have to pay me for having fun looking up all this ridiculous stuff for you. Don't pay any herald to consult for you. It's a waste of money. People will do it for free. Rip to the heralds that want to charge people.
Honestly, a more accurate statement for names and arms, that type of stuff, that's bread and butter. No one should be charging you. If something does come up where it's going to require more research, there are circumstances I could envision where someone's like, okay, look, this is taking time out of my day. They will talk to you and go, you know, maybe we can talk about a trade if you sew something for me or paint something for me. But any good business deal anywhere should involve price up front. No one is going to come back and say, you now owe me. Again, if they do, tell us. We'll take care of the problem.
Yeah, getting just the art and the name should be pretty easy. It's an $8 fee to register your name in Heraldry. It is $8 per item. So if you register a name and a device, that'll be $16. If you register a name, a device, and a badge, it's $24, etc. Please don't make me go further into math than that. Is it an in-person payment or can I pay over Facebook? We are trying to get an online payment. It's in the process, but it's moving kind of slow. The SCA recently had a big hurrah where you could do your consulting and payment and everything online, but that's over. From what I understand, they are going to be doing more. So you can pay online that way. Typically, you will hand a check to your treasurer, not to your herald. Heralds don't handle money. You will hand over a check or cash to your treasurer. Since we can't see people right now, usually what that entails is emailing them and saying, where do you want this mailed? So just contact the person taking your money and they will work with you. And like if you and 5 friends want to register something, like you each want to register one name and one badge and there's 10 things being sent in, you don't have to send in 10 checks. You can all put like in the notes section who all's heraldry that's covering, and then your exchequer will like you because they don't have to deal with like the paperwork of putting 10 checks through the system. So consolidation is good. Sorry, right now it's kind of physical payment only, but Society and Onsteora are working on streamlining that. I know Mistress Elena, who's the current like team captain of the Heralds, is the Star Herald in Onsteora, is working really hard to get us PayPal. Is garb required to attend events? An attempt at pre-17th century garb is required. Lots of people have hand-me-downs they are willing to give you, or your local hospitaller or any local officer probably has garb you can borrow. There are also lots of people who love teaching and will be happy to help you sew some. Perfect does not
I mean, you could go as a beggar initially, right?
Yes. Everyone is assumed to be some kind of gentry, so you don't have to be a beggar. Like you can dress as fancy as you want. Dressing fancy is expensive.
Let's say you were going to something new and you didn't have time to throw something together yet or whatever. I mean, you could just throw on rags and say you're a beggar.
Yeah. Barony of the Steppes has excessive amounts of loaner garb.
Okay.
You are my neighbor. I know that I can get you garb. You don't need to worry.
I'm all about
I recruited Tara while I was walking my dog during the snowstorm, and now she's stuck with us.
I saw you walking your dog earlier about 2 hours ago. I was going to say hi, but I was rushing out so I could get back and not miss this.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
had to take her out.
please take some of our loaner garb. No, really, please.
We have so many tubs of loaner garb. If you are not in our barony, we will loan you garb. Katie asks,
children,
will Ren Fair garb count?
Do you have loaner garb for kids as well?
Yes, we have loaner garb for everybody. It's like Oprah. Loaner garb for everybody. Yes, Ren Fair garb counts as a reasonable attempt. I've seen people straight up show up in fairy wings, and while I do not personally recommend it, again, I'm not going to tell you how to enjoy your SCA experience. So yes, Ren Fair garb counts.
Do they have to prove that fairies exist? That was a joke. Sorry.
I don't like. I'm never going to make someone leave site, even if you show up in mundane clothes in regular like a hoodie. Like I'm not going to be the person to kick you
I'm
out.
a
I want
peddler
everybody.
from the future.
Do you wash loaner garb? We do. Yes. I will not make you wear somebody else's sweat. Even like our loaner kits, we wipe out in between use, like our armor and stuff. We enjoy hygiene here in the steppes. That being said, it is stored in like people's like garages and attics. So when you get it handed to you, if it's before the event, you may want to wash it again anyways. So one thing the steppes is going to try to do once we can get together again is host make and takes. So if you show up and put in the work to produce this tunic, that is now your free tunic that you get to take with you. And there's some hurdles we are jumping with that, but it's in the works. It's people who are worried about garb, keep an eye out for that once it's safe to gather again. That's another good use of heraldry. So like I have a tunic in the colors of the Barony of the Steppes. So like if I choose to fight with steppes, shield wall and stuff, like I can wear the green, and then I have a yellow one for the kingdom, and then I have red because that's my personal color. So any more questions on garb, heraldry, event requirements? Children coming to events do have to have waivers. If you are bringing a child who is not yours, they have to have a waiver that is notarized because children are important and we don't want to do them wrong. If it's your child, you can just show up and sign it right there. But if it's not your child, you have to have a notarized form from the parent. What is the usual admission fee to events? Grandchild still have to have a form signed from the parent.
No.
The usual admission fee to events is $20-ish for 1 and 2 day events, is what I have seen. There's a big week-long event called Gulf Wars, and that can go up to like $90. Some of them are really cheap and they're like $10. It's not absurd, especially given that you get an entire day of basically entertainment. And sometimes that will even include lunch. So great thing to do with family. And now what they've started doing is like kids under 18 get in free. So like you and your partner, you and whoever will pay. And then like the kids that came with you, you don't have to pay for them. The other way they've been doing it that's increasingly going away in favor of the kids for free is family maximums. So like if you bring your family, you will not pay more than $50 or whatever. Since we're talking events, how often are there local kingdom or barony events? Are they big or small? Right now, there are none. They are not often. Typically, there will be something almost every weekend. You are not expected to go every weekend. You pick what you want to go to. I go to all of them because I have no life. But Steppes' main event for fighting is Steppes Warlord, and that is in May. I know Elfsea, which is the Fort Worth-based group, has their fighting event in April. Steppes Artisan is a spring one, question mark, as May. We have a 12th
That's in
night. August, summer.
Which you should know, social media officer.
I've only been playing in the SCA for 2 years, Your Excellency. And our 12th night, which is like our kind of holiday themed event where everyone wears like their fancy garb and eats a feast together, is in January. And then other baronies will kind of stagger their events like around each other so that no one's competing, so that we can all go see each other. As far as big wars, there is War of the Rams, which is always the weekend before Thanksgiving every year. And that is down near Houston. There is Gulf Wars, which is in Mississippi. It's a week-long event. It's super fun if you can get the time off for it. And that's once a year. And then there's like some other wars around America that if you are so inclined, they are also a week-long. You can go out to them, and they're kind of staggered throughout the seasons as well. Because we're not expecting everyone to be like gone for a week and then immediately go to another war the next week. The biggest SCA event is Penzic, and that's in the summer, and it is in Pennsylvania. Any more questions?
I have found a wonderful source for linen that is $6.99 a yard. And it's the OKC Fabric Mart.
Nice. If you are in OKC, that's probably a great resource.
Yes.
I order all mine from Fabric Store, and another way you can cut down on that cost
I
is
have
to
ordered
order in bulk.
I have ordered from them also. And comparable.
Yeah, if you get a big group together and everyone chips in $10, it's really cheap to get like a bolt of yellow or whatever, and you all have enough. Esme has a cat. Yes. A lot of good information today. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to shout them out or to find me on Facebook. I am fairly easy to find.
You said you were going to put the information.
Yeah, I've got a PDF of the slideshow that I presented, and it will have clickable links. I'm going to try and put it in the event. If it won't allow me to upload files, I'm going to put it in the Barony of the Steps group, and I will link that post in the event. You should be able to find it. If you can't find it, look me up on Facebook, Katie Gilroy, or email me at sigillary. I'll put my email in the thing. This is my Herald email. Since I'm also an officer of the Barony of the Steps, you can email social-media@steps.onsteor.org also to find me. Or email any officer and they'll point you in my direction. I am not hard to find. I am all over the internet. Fabric question. Yes. Ask me all your fabric questions.
So basically, I came across this one lady that was selling really good fabric prices, but she said that her fabric was I think it was 60% linen and 40% cotton or something like that. Have you guys ever used any blends, even though they're natural blends, and how are they different from the 100%?
I have some hoods that I made out of blends when I first started because it was cheap and I'm poor. Typically in the South, what you want to look for is natural fibers because they breathe. So like linen cotton is great. It'll breathe. It will not make the sweat stick to your body, which is what you're looking for. Now I do all linen for all my fighting garb because Texas is hot and I wanted to breathe as much as possible. I think blends are fine. I'm not a stickler for historical accuracy. Cotton is what I suggest to newbies who don't want to spend the money on linen because it can get expensive. So I think linen cotton will be fine. Just what you want to be careful with is polyester because that is what traps heat and it's also flammable. So if you're like around a campfire and you're not paying attention.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm also not like a mega seamstress or anything, so there are Facebook groups that you can get better answers. Like all I can tell you is what I do.
That's good enough. I was just wondering what anybody's experience was with the cotton linen blend, if it was still a little too hot or if it was okay.
What I will say is if a deal seems too good to be true, it probably is. So do your research, ask around if you're going to buy from someone.
It's not that good of a deal. It's only like $9 a yard, but compared to $15 a yard, when I've got a big family, so
yeah,
a few dollars helps.
Like I said, we have tons of loaner garb, so there's no need to build out a whole wardrobe right away. Like I'm still in garb that I borrowed from people, from my friends. So I will let y'all go, get on with your night. If nobody has any more questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
thank you all for coming. I had a great time. I hope this was informative. Feel free
Very
to reach
much.
out to me.
Thank you.
I will hopefully see you all soon. Stay safe.